Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story is going to challenge everything you think you know about Thailand's dating scene, because it's not about some guy who got scammed by a bargirl. It's about a 29-year-old software developer from Vancouver named Marcus Chen, who did everything the internet told him to do, dated the right kind of Thai woman, the educated professional with the master's degree and the office job, and still ended up learning the exact same expensive lesson. The twist? The bargirl he judged and avoided might have been more honest than the woman he chose. This is about class, perception, and how sometimes the most dangerous lies come wrapped in respectability. Marcus is sharing his story because he wants other foreign men to understand something crucial. It's not about where she works or what degree she has. It's about who sees you as a person and who sees you as an opportunity. And sometimes, the woman in the pencil skirt is running a longer, more sophisticated game than the one in the short dress ever could. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever judged someone's worth by their job or education only to learn you had it backwards, hit that subscribe button. This one's going to make you rethink everything. Alright, here's Marcus, in his own words. My name's Marcus Chen. I'm 29 years old, and I'm writing this from my apartment in Vancouver, where I moved back 6 months ago. Broke and humbled, and carrying a story I never thought would be mine to tell. I work as a software developer, or I did before everything happened, back when I thought being smart and educated meant I was immune to the kinds of mistakes I'd read about online. I'm second-generation Chinese-Canadian, grew up in Richmond, went to UBC for computer science, landed a decent job at a tech company that paid well enough for me to afford a one-bedroom in Mount Pleasant, and told myself I was doing okay. But I wasn't okay. Not really. Vancouver's a beautiful city if you can afford to enjoy it. And even with a tech salary, I was just treading water, watching rent eat half my paycheck while everyone around me seemed to be either a millionaire's kid or working 3 jobs to survive. The dating scene was worse. Every woman I met through apps seemed more interested in what I did for work than who I actually was. First dates that felt like job interviews, conversations about career trajectories and investment properties before we'd even ordered drinks. I spent most of my time working, gaming, and scrolling through YouTube videos about digital nomads living in Southeast Asia. There was this whole genre of content, guys my age or a bit older, working remotely from Bali or Chiang Mai or Ho Chi Minh City, showing off their apartments that cost a quarter of Vancouver rent, eating incredible food for pocket change, talking about how much better life was once you escaped the Western grind. I watched those videos the way some people watch travel shows, as fantasy, as escape, never really thinking I'd be one of those guys. Then the pandemic hit and my company went remote. Suddenly, everyone was working from home, and after 6 months of that, management decided to make it permanent. We could work from anywhere with decent internet. That changed everything. I realized I was paying Vancouver prices to sit in my apartment and stare at a screen, that I could be doing the exact same work from somewhere that actually felt like living instead of just surviving. I started researching seriously, read every digital nomad blog, joined Facebook groups, consumed hours of YouTube content about the best cities for remote workers. Thailand kept coming up, specifically Bangkok and Chiang Mai. The infrastructure was solid, the food was incredible, the cost of living was low enough that my Canadian salary would go 3 or 4 times further. But more than that, there was this promise of connection, of community, of a social life that didn't require a mortgage payment just to participate in. The dating content caught my attention too. There were entire channels dedicated to foreign men dating Thai women, and the advice was always the same. Avoid bargirls. They're all scammers. They're just after your money. They'll bleed you dry and disappear. If you want something real, date educated Thai women, university graduates, professional women with careers and independence, women who don't need your money because they have their own. That's where you'll find genuine connection. It made perfect sense to me. I'd always been attracted to intelligence and ambition, had never been the kind of guy who prioritized looks over substance. The idea that I could find a partner who was educated, culturally interesting, and actually interested in me rather than my wallet felt like exactly what I'd been missing in Vancouver. I convinced myself I was going to do Thailand the right way, that I'd be different from all those desperate middle-aged guys in the videos, the ones sitting in bars with women young enough to be their daughters. I felt morally superior about it, if I'm being honest. Like I'd figured out the system everyone else was too stupid or too desperate to understand. I gave notice at my apartment, sold most of my furniture, packed 2 suitcases and my laptop, and booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok. My parents thought I was having some kind of crisis. My friends were split between jealous and concerned. My dad asked me 3 times if I was sure I knew what I was doing. I told him I absolutely did. I was 29, single, debt-free, with a job I could do from anywhere. Why wouldn't I go? Bangkok hit me like a wall the second I stepped off the plane. The heat was oppressive, thick and wet, the kind that makes your shirt stick to your back within minutes. The airport was massive and modern and confusing. Signs in Thai script I couldn't read, announcements in a language that sounded musical and completely incomprehensible. I grabbed a taxi to my condo in Sukhumvit, spent the ride staring out the window at a city that looked nothing like the organised, comprehensible Vancouver I'd left behind. My condo was small but clean, a studio in a high-rise building full of other foreigners and wealthy Thais, and it cost me $400 a month including utilities. $400 for something that would have been $3,000 back home. I unpacked, set up my workstation, and spent my first night lying in bed listening to the city hum outside my window, feeling terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. The first month was about finding my rhythm. I'd work Canadian hours, which meant starting at 8 p.m. Bangkok time and finishing around 4 in the morning, then sleeping until noon, waking up to afternoons and evenings that stretched out with possibility. I found co-working spaces where other digital nomads gathered, cafes with good Wi-Fi and cold air conditioning, restaurants where I could point at pictures on the menu and get incredible food for less than a coffee cost in Vancouver. I met other foreign guys, most of them remote workers like me, a few retirees, some English teachers. Everyone had a story about why they'd left home, and everyone claimed to be different from the stereotypes. We'd sit in craft beer bars that tried to recreate Portland or Melbourne, drinking overpriced IPAs and talking about visa runs and the best neighbourhoods, and which co-working spaces had the fastest internet. The dating advice came up constantly. Everyone had opinions. Stay away from the obvious bar areas, Nana Plaza and Soy Cowboy. That's where the professionals work, and you're just a transaction to them. Use Thai dating apps, but be selective. Lots of scammers. Look for educated women. Women with real jobs. Women who speak English well because it means they're from good families who could afford decent schools. The subtext was always the same. There's a right kind of Thai woman to date and a wrong kind. And if you're smart enough to tell the difference, you'll be fine. I absorbed it all like gospel. Downloaded the apps, set up my profile, swiped through hundreds of women and felt confident in my ability to spot red flags. Too attractive? Probably a scammer. English too perfect in a flirty way? Professional. But someone who looked normal, had photos at offices or universities, wrote profiles that mentioned careers and hobbies, that was the sweet spot. That's how I found Pim. Her profile was exactly what I'd been looking for. 27 years old, worked in marketing, had a master's degree from Chulalongkorn University, which I'd learned was basically Thailand's Harvard, spoke fluent English, photos of her at professional events and coffee shops and temples. Nothing provocative, nothing that screamed Bargirl or gold digger, just a normal attractive woman who seemed to have her life together. We matched, started chatting, and the conversation flowed easily. She asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested in software development, shared stories about her own job at a Thai startup that was trying to compete with international marketing agencies. We talked about books and movies and the differences between Canadian and Thai culture. She was smart, funny, self-deprecating in a way that felt authentic. After a week of messaging, we agreed to meet for dinner. I remember being nervous getting ready that night. The same kind of nervous I used to get before first dates in Vancouver, but with an added layer of excitement, because this felt different. This felt like the beginning of the Thailand experience I'd imagined. The one where I dated someone interesting and educated, and we built something real together. Pim showed up in a simple dress, conservative by Western standards, carrying a leather bag that looked expensive but not flashy. She was prettier in person, with long dark hair and careful makeup, and this warm smile that put me at ease immediately. We went to a Japanese restaurant in Thonglor, one of Bangkok's nicer neighbourhoods, and talked for 3 hours over sushi and sake. She told me about growing up in Bangkok, about her family who were middle-class professionals, her dad who worked in finance, and her mom who was a teacher. She talked about studying marketing at Chulalongkorn, about how competitive it was, about her dreams of eventually starting her own agency. She asked about Vancouver, about why I'd left, and when I told her about feeling isolated and burnt out, She nodded like she understood completely. She said Bangkok could feel the same way sometimes, that it was easy to be surrounded by millions of people and still feel totally alone. The connection felt real. We split the bill, which surprised me in a good way. And when I offered to get a taxi for her, she said she'd take the BTS, Bangkok SkyTrain, because it was faster. No hints about money, no suggestions that I should pay for everything, just an equal splitting of costs like you'd expect from someone who had her own career and income. We started seeing each other regularly after that. Coffee dates at trendy cafes in Ari, weekend trips to Ayutthaya to see the temples, dinners at restaurants where she'd order in Thai and translate the menu for me. She introduced me to her friends, other young Bangkok professionals who spoke English and worked at banks and tech companies and seemed totally normal. Everything felt legitimate, respectable, real. I met her family 3 months in. Her parents lived in a nice house in a suburb north of Bangkok, the kind of middle-class neighborhood with gates and security and small gardens. Her dad spoke decent English, asked me about my work and my family, seemed genuinely interested rather than interrogating. Her mom barely spoke English, but was warm and welcoming, kept putting food on my plate and smiling at me. They had photos all over the house. Pim's graduation from Chula, family trips to the beach, her younger brother in his high school uniform. It all checked out. Everything the blogs and forums had told me to look for was there. Educated woman, real job, good family, no immediate request for money, genuine interest in me as a person. I started thinking long term. Started imagining what it would look like to build a life in Bangkok with someone like Pim, maybe eventually getting married, maybe even having kids. There was this bar near my condo, nothing special, just a street-side place with plastic chairs and warm beer and the usual mix of locals and foreigners. A woman named Noi worked there, probably mid-20s, always friendly, always smiling. She'd try to chat with me when I'd walk past, ask where I was from, practice her English, the kind of interaction that I now understand was just basic Thai friendliness. But at the time, I interpreted as something else. I was polite, but distant with Noi. In my head, she represented exactly what I was trying to avoid. Bargirl, probably uneducated, probably looking for a foreign boyfriend to support her and her family. I'd see other foreign guys sitting at that bar, older men with beer bellies and young Thai women on their laps, and I'd feel this surge of superiority. I wasn't like them. I'd figured it out. I was dating someone real, someone educated, someone who wanted me for me. Looking back now, the arrogance is embarrassing. But at the time, I genuinely believed I'd cracked the code that everyone else was too desperate or too stupid to understand. 6 months into the relationship with Pim, things shifted slightly. She mentioned one evening that her company was having financial problems, that they might not make payroll next month, that she was worried about covering her rent. She didn't ask me for help directly, just shared it as stress, as something weighing on her mind. I offered immediately, told her I'd cover her rent until things stabilized, that it was no problem, that we were partners, and partners help each other. Her rent was 15,000 baht, about 600 Canadian dollars. She was grateful, but not overly so. Said she'd pay me back once her salary came through, gave me a hug and told me I was different from other foreign men she'd met, that I understood what real partnership looked like. I felt good about it. This was exactly the kind of thing you do for someone you care about, someone who's going through a rough patch. This wasn't a scam, this was life, and I had the means to help, so why wouldn't I? The requests started coming more frequently after that. Her father needed heart surgery, 30,000 baht for the hospital deposit. Her younger brother was trying to get into university, needed money for entrance exam prep courses, another 20,000. A friend of hers was starting a business, and Pim had a chance to invest early, get in on the ground floor. It could really help her career if she had some capital to put in, maybe 200,000 baht. Each request came with explanations, with documentation that looked official, with gratitude and promises. Pim would show me hospital paperwork, university brochures, business plans. Everything seemed legitimate, and more importantly, everything seemed like the kind of thing an educated professional woman would be dealing with. This wasn't some bar girl asking for money to send to her village. This was my girlfriend navigating the complexities of middle-class Bangkok life, and I had the privilege and means to help. I said yes every time, transferred money through mobile banking, watched my Canadian savings account slowly drain, and told myself it was temporary, that once Pim's company stabilized, once her father recovered, once the business started paying returns, we'd be in a better position. We were building a future together. This was investment, not expense. But late at night, after Pim had gone home or was out with her business partners, I'd lie in bed and feel this creeping anxiety I couldn't quite name. I'd check my bank balance and see numbers that made my chest tight, see months of my salary disappearing into what I told myself was partnership, but was starting to feel like something else. Pim was around less, out with clients, meetings with investors, helping her mother with her father's recovery, always busy, always stressed, always needing just a bit more time before things evened out. When I'd suggest spending a quiet evening together, she'd say she wished she could, but she had obligations, family expectations, career pressures I wouldn't understand because I wasn't Thai, and I believed her, because she was educated, because she had a degree from Chulalongkorn, because she dressed professionally and spoke perfect English and came from a good family, because everything I'd read online told me that women like her were safe, were real, were different from those girls working in bars who everyone knew were just after foreign money. I sat in my condo one evening, Pim out at another business meeting, looking at my bank statements spread across my laptop screen. 7 months in Thailand, 42,000 Canadian dollars lighter than when I'd arrived. The number didn't make sense. I wasn't living extravagantly, wasn't partying every night, wasn't doing anything that should have cost that much. But there it was. Rent paid 6 months ahead for Pim's condo, medical bills for her father, university fees for her brother, investment in her friend's business that I'd never actually seen, phone bills and laptop replacements, and family emergencies that always seemed to cost just a bit more than expected. I closed my laptop and poured myself a whiskey, tried to push the anxiety down, tried to remind myself that this was what partnership looked like, but a small voice in the back of my head, the one I'd been ignoring for weeks, whispered a question I wasn't ready to answer. What if the degree and the job and the good family were just a more expensive costume? What if I'd been so busy congratulating myself for avoiding the obvious scam that I'd walked straight into a more sophisticated one? I finished my whiskey and poured another and told myself I was being paranoid, that educated Thai women don't run scams, that Pim was real and we were building something real, and I just needed to trust the process. But the voice kept whispering and I kept drinking, and somewhere in Bangkok, in a bar I'd walked past 100 times, a woman named Noi was probably serving beers to foreign men I'd judged as desperate and stupid, while I sat alone in my condo, educated and enlightened and slowly realizing I might be the biggest fool of all. The unraveling started with lunch. Simple as that. I decided to surprise Pim at her office one Thursday afternoon, thought we could grab something to eat together, maybe talk about the weekend. She'd been so busy lately, always rushing off to meetings, always stressed about work deadlines, and I figured showing up with takeout from her favourite Sumtown place would be a nice gesture, the kind of thing boyfriends do. I'd been to her office building once before, months ago, when she briefly stopped by to grab something and I'd waited in the lobby. It was in Siloam, Bangkok's business district, a mid-rise tower with mirrored glass and a corporate lobby. I remembered thinking it looked legitimate, professional, exactly where someone with a marketing career would work. I showed up around noon with papaya salad and grilled chicken, took the elevator to the 7th floor where she'd said her company was located. The doors opened to a small reception area, sparse and temporary looking, with cheap furniture and motivational posters that seemed mass-produced. A young woman sat behind the desk, scrolling through her phone. I asked for Pim, used her full name, said I was her boyfriend here to surprise her with lunch. The receptionist looked confused, said something in Thai I didn't understand, then switched to English and told me nobody by that name worked there. I must have the wrong floor. I checked my phone, showed her the address Pim had written down months ago. The receptionist shrugged, said maybe she'd left the company, that people came and went quickly in startups. I asked when Pim had stopped working there. The woman looked uncomfortable, said she'd only been working reception for 2 months, didn't know everyone who'd been there before. My hands started shaking. I thanked her and left, stood in the elevator feeling like the floor was tilting. Called Pim immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, sounded distracted, asked why I was calling in the middle of her workday. I told her I was at her office. Silence. Then she asked why I was checking up on her. What was I doing showing up unannounced? Didn't I trust her? Her voice had an edge I'd never heard before, sharp and defensive. I tried to explain, said I wasn't checking up, I was trying to do something nice, but she cut me off. Said she was working from a client site today, had mentioned it earlier in the week, but I never listened, was too wrapped up in my own world to pay attention to hers. I apologised. Said she was right. I should have texted first. I was sorry for bothering her. We hung up and I stood on Siloam Road with lunch, I couldn't eat anymore, watching Bangkok rush past me, feeling something fundamental crack in my chest. I couldn't shake it. The receptionist's confusion, Pim's immediate defensiveness, the office that looked nothing like the thriving startup she'd described. I went back to my condo and sat there for hours, trying to logic it away, trying to find innocent explanations. Maybe she really was at a client site. Maybe the receptionist was new and incompetent. Maybe I'd misunderstood the whole situation, but I couldn't make it fit. The pieces wouldn't align no matter how I arranged them. That evening, I walked past the bar near my condo, the one where Noi worked. I'd avoided it for months. Felt like going there would somehow validate the stereotypes I'd worked so hard to transcend. But that night, I needed a drink. And I needed it somewhere that wasn't my empty apartment. So I sat down at one of the plastic tables and ordered a beer. Noi recognized me immediately, smiled that same warm smile she always had, asked how I'd been, said she hadn't seen me around much lately. I told her I'd been busy, had a girlfriend, was trying to build something serious. She nodded, didn't seem offended or disappointed, just accepted it as information. I don't know why I started talking, maybe because she was a stranger, maybe because I was desperate to say the thoughts out loud, maybe because something in her face seemed genuinely kind. I mentioned Pim's name, mentioned her master's degree from Chulalongkorn, her marketing job. Noi's expression shifted slightly, not dramatic, just a small change that made me pay attention. She asked which company Pim worked for. I told her. Noi got quiet, pulled out her phone, scrolled for a minute, then showed me a Thai news article from 8 months ago. I couldn't read most of it, but I recognized the company name and the word that Google Translate told me meant bankrupt or closed. My stomach dropped. Noi could see it in my face. She said her friend had worked there, that the company had shut down suddenly, that everyone had lost their jobs and some hadn't even gotten their final paychecks. She said it gently, carefully, like she was trying not to hurt me. I asked when. She checked the date on the article. 8 months ago, 2 months before I'd even met Pim, which meant every story about her stressful job, her difficult boss, her company's financial problems, all of it was fiction. She'd been unemployed our entire relationship. Noi didn't push, just sat with me while I processed it, brought me another beer without asking, let the silence stretch. After a while she said, quiet and kind, that I should be careful, that Bangkok had a lot of people who were very good at telling foreign men exactly what they wanted to hear. She didn't say, I told you so, didn't lecture me, just offered a small piece of advice wrapped in genuine concern. I went home and I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every conversation, every story Pim had told me, looking for other cracks in the narrative. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I'd never actually verified anything. I'd just believed her, because she fit the profile I'd been told to trust. Over the next week, I started investigating. Quietly, carefully, feeling like a paranoid asshole the whole time, but unable to stop myself. I called the hospital where Pim's father had supposedly had heart surgery, used Google Translate to communicate with the billing department, gave them her family name and the approximate date, no record. They suggested I might have the wrong hospital. I searched for her friend's business, the one I'd invested 200,000 baht into, the one Pim said was about to take off. Found nothing. No company registration, no website, no social media presence. Just my money vanished into a business that apparently didn't exist. The university fees I'd paid for her brother, I looked up the actual cost of entrance exam prep courses at Bangkok universities. They were a fraction of what I'd given Pim. Maybe a quarter at most. And the degree. Her master's from Chulalongkorn. I had a friend from my co-working space who'd actually gone there, a Thai guy who worked in tech. I asked him casually, said I was curious about the marketing program. Did he know anyone from it? He gave me the name of the alumni association contact. I emailed, said I was trying to verify my girlfriend's graduation for visa purposes, gave Pim's full name and the years she'd planned to attend. 3 days later, I got a response. No record of anyone by that name in their marketing graduate programs during those years. Everything was constructed. The educated professional persona, the middle-class family, the stable career, the prestigious degree. All of it was theatre, just a more sophisticated version of what I'd been warned about with Bargirls. The same game, just played in nicer clothes with better English and a more convincing backstory. I sat in my condo with printouts of everything I'd found, my hands shaking, feeling physically sick. 47,000 Canadian dollars over 9 months. more money than I'd ever imagined spending, handed over willingly because I'd thought education and class were shields against manipulation. When Pim came over that evening, I didn't ease into it, just put the evidence on the table and asked her to explain. The hospital records, the company closure, the non-existent degree, the missing business registration. Everything. She tried denial first, said I had the wrong hospital, wrong department, that Thai bureaucracy was complicated and I didn't understand how things worked here. When I showed her the article about her company closing, she pivoted, said yes, she'd lost that job, but she'd found another one, hadn't wanted to worry me with the transition, had been embarrassed about the instability. I asked about the degree. She got angry then, said I was being a controlling foreigner who couldn't handle a strong Thai woman, that this was exactly why Thai women had to be careful with foreign men, because we pretended to trust, but really, we were just suspicious and racist. She said I was violating her privacy, investigating her like she was a criminal, that if I loved her, I'd believe her without needing proof. For a second, I almost backed down, almost let her turn it around, make me the villain, make me the problem. But I couldn't. Not with $47,000 of evidence sitting on the table between us. I asked her directly about Chulalongkorn, told her I'd contacted the Alumni Association, watched her face change, watched the calculations happen behind her eyes, watched her realize the game was over. She broke down, started crying, said she'd done it because foreign men wouldn't respect her otherwise, because if she told them she was from a poor family and hadn't gone to university, they'd just see her as another uneducated Thai girl looking for a meal ticket. Said she'd needed to present herself a certain way to be taken seriously, that it wasn't her fault, the system forced her to lie. But she couldn't explain the fake hospital bills. Couldn't explain the non-existent business. Couldn't explain where all the money had actually gone. I told her to leave. She begged me to let her explain. Said we could work through this. Said she really did love me. I couldn't listen anymore. Just asked her to go, to leave her key, to not contact me again. She left crying. Took all the things I'd bought her, the laptop and the phone and the jewellery, packed them efficiently like she'd done this before. The door closed, and I sat in the silence of my condo, surrounded by furniture we'd picked out together, photos of tricks we'd taken, evidence of a relationship that had never actually existed. I went back to Noi's bar the next night. Needed to not be alone. Needed to be somewhere that felt honest, even if it was a place I'd judged and dismissed for months. She saw me walk in, saw my face, didn't ask questions. Just brought me a beer and sat down across from me when her shift ended an hour later. I told her everything. The investigation, the confrontation, the lies stacked on lies. Noi listened without judgment, without, I told you so, just listened the way someone does when they've seen this story play out 100 times before. Then she told me about Pim. Not everything, but enough. Said Pim was known in certain circles, that she ran a sophisticated operation targeting foreign professionals, tech workers, and remote employees who thought they were too smart for Bargirl scams. She'd study their industry, learn the language and references, create an entire identity designed to appeal to men who wanted to feel like they were dating equals. Noi said Pim had multiple foreign boyfriends usually, sometimes 3 or 4 at the same time, all of them believing they'd found the rare, educated Thai woman who wasn't after money. All of them too proud to compare notes or ask questions, because that would mean admitting they were in the same category as all those other stupid foreigners. I asked how Noi knew all this. She said Bangkok was smaller than foreigners thought, that Thai women talked to each other, that the bar girls and the educated scammers weren't in different worlds. They all knew about each other. She said the difference was honesty. A bar girl tells you up front what the transaction is, work, payment, everyone knows the terms. Someone like Pim sells you a fantasy of authentic connection while extracting the same resources, sometimes more. Noi told me her own story then. Came from Isan, one of Thailand's poorest regions, started working in bars at 22 to send money home to her family. Her parents were rice farmers, her younger siblings needed school fees, her grandmother needed medicine. She made no apologies for it, didn't dress it up as anything other than what it was. Hard work that paid better than the factory jobs her friends had, work that let her support 5 people back home. She said she'd seen dozens of foreign men like me over the years, men who'd sit at bars like hers and feel superior, feel like they'd figured out the system, while dating Thai women who were running more expensive games. The guys who avoided her because she was honest about working in a bar were the same guys who'd hand over their life savings to a woman in a pencil skirt who claimed to have a degree. I asked her why she was telling me this. She said because I'd been kind to her even when I was judging her, because she could see I was a decent person who'd just gotten lost, and because staying bitter about it would eat me alive. Over the next few weeks, I kept going back to that bar, not as a customer looking for anything, just as someone who needed honest human interaction. Noi introduced me to other women who worked there, and I heard their stories. Single mothers supporting kids, daughters sending money home for medical bills, women putting younger siblings through university. The work was what it was, but the reasons behind it were painfully human. I thought about the irony constantly. I'd avoided Noi because of her job, assumed she was dangerous, while giving endless trust to Pim because of her supposed credentials. My classism and my need to feel superior to other foreign men had made me the perfect mark. The women at that bar had been more honest with me in 3 weeks than Pim had been in 9 months. They never pretended to be anything other than what they were, never constructed elaborate lies about their education or their families. Just showed up, did their work, took care of their responsibilities, and went home. Meanwhile, women like Pim existed in every tier of Thai society, using whatever tools they had, including education and sophistication, to run the same fundamental game. The diploma wasn't proof of character. The office job wasn't evidence of integrity. I'd confused credentials with trustworthiness and paid $47,000 to learn the difference. I decided to leave Thailand, but not immediately. I needed time to process everything, to figure out who I'd been when I arrived versus who I was becoming. I kept working my remote job, kept my cheap studio, started actually experiencing Bangkok instead of just using it as a backdrop for my fantasy. I spent time in neighborhoods I'd never visited, ate at restaurants that didn't cater to foreigners, tried to learn basic Thai beyond please and thank you. Noi helped, would correct my pronunciation and laugh with me, not at me when I mangled the tones. We became actual friends, the kind where you can sit in comfortable silence or have real conversations about complicated things. She told me once, late one night after her shift, that the smartest men she knew had fallen for the exact same thing I had. Said intelligence didn't protect you from loneliness, didn't shield you from the need to feel special. Said everyone believes what they want to believe, especially when the alternative is admitting you're alone in a foreign country with no real connections. I asked her what she thought I should do. She said that was up to me, but that going home angry would just mean I'd wasted money and learned nothing. Better to leave understanding something about myself, about human nature, about the stories we tell ourselves to avoid harder truths. My last week in Bangkok, I finally did all the tourist things I'd been too cool for when I arrived. Went to the Grand Palace, took a boat down the Chao Phraya River, ate street food from carts I'd previously avoided because they didn't look clean enough. Everything felt different now. Less like a performance and more like actual experience. Noi met me for dinner my final night, not at her bar, but at a small restaurant near the river she said was her favourite. We ate and talked about nothing important, just the kind of conversation friends have when they know they won't see each other for a while. She told me not to be too hard on myself. Said everyone comes to Thailand looking for something, and most people find exactly what they need to learn even if it's not what they wanted. She said I'd come looking for love, and found out something more valuable, that character can't be determined by a diploma or a job title, that the most expensive education comes from the people we were too proud to learn from. I flew back to Vancouver on a Tuesday morning, $47,000 lighter, and carrying a story I knew I needed to share. Not to shame anyone, not to warn people away from Thailand, but to challenge the narrative I'd consumed so eagerly. The idea that there's a right kind of Thai woman to date and a wrong kind, that education equals integrity, that you can game the system if you're just smart enough. I'm back in my apartment in Mount Pleasant now, working the same job, living in the same expensive city. My parents don't ask too many questions about what happened. My friends assume I had a good time and came home when the money ran out. Only a few people know the real story, and I'm okay with that. But I think about Noi sometimes. Wonder how she's doing. Hope she's still working toward whatever dreams she has beyond that bar. And I think about all the other foreign men in Bangkok right now, sitting in cafes and co-working spaces, convinced they're different, convinced their girlfriend is special, convinced that education and class mean they're safe from being scammed. Thailand doesn't care about your prejudices or your assumptions. The country will teach you about yourself whether you're ready for the lesson or not. I learned that the woman serving drinks might be more honest than the woman serving lies. and that sometimes the most expensive education comes from judging people by their job instead of their character. I lost $47,000 and gained a story. Not sure if that's a fair trade, but it's the one I made. And if sharing it helps one other person avoid the same mistake, maybe it'll have been worth something after all.